Greetings and welcome to the Connecticut Department of Transportation's virtual public kickoff meeting for the Connecticut State Rail Plan. My name is Elise Greenberg and I'm a transportation planner with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Thank you for taking the time to tune into our presentation, which we hope you will find informative. The purpose of this kickoff meeting is to provide you with an opportunity to learn about the purpose of the State Rail Plan and how Connecticut DOT is in the process of updating it. For those of you that are viewing this presentation via Microsoft Teams, there is the option to view captions or subtitles. To turn on this feature, select the CC button at the bottom right corner of your screen. This turns on the captioning. Then choose the language by selecting the settings wheel next to the CC button. Select Captions/Subtitles and select the desired language. Available languages for this presentation are English, Chinese, French Creole, Polish, Portuguese, Spanish, and Vietnamese. Before we introduce our speakers and begin the presentation, I would like to take a moment to go over a few housekeeping items and explain the meeting format. Our presentation will last approximately 20 to 25 minutes, and once it is complete, we will host a live question and answer session. A few important housekeeping items to note. This meeting is being recorded so that we can capture all of the feedback that we receive. There may be some technical glitches, and if they arise, we appreciate your patience as we quickly work to address them. You will have 3 means of communicating with us during the live Q&A. You can send an email, leave a voicemail, or if you are watching this on Microsoft Teams, you can post a question in the chat field, which we will go over in more detail shortly. The project team will monitor the email, phone, and chat periodically during the presentation and Q&A session. The questions asked through any of these methods will be posted in the Teams Q&A chat window. We will read all of the questions out loud for the project team to answer. You can ask questions at any time during the presentation, but we will answer these questions during the live Q&A session. Connecticut DOT will accept questions and comments by email or phone for 45 days following these virtual kickoff meetings until October 15th, 2021. More information is available on the Connecticut State Rail Plan webpage. Visit www.ct.gov/DOT/SRP.
If you are viewing through Microsoft Teams, you can post a question or comment by clicking the little question mark to the top right of the presentation window and clicking the My Questions tab or the Ask a Question button. You then have an option to enter your name and type your question into the Ask a Question field. Click the checkbox to post anonymously, then click the double arrow or hit Enter to post a question. Click Featured to view announcements and attendee questions. You may experience a delay before your own sent question is posted. You can exit the questions window by clicking X and can return to it at any time by clicking the Show Q&A question mark. Click the My Questions tab to post another question or hit X to close the window again. To maximize the presentation window, click the arrow to the bottom right of the presentation window and click the arrow again to reduce the window size.
In accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, no person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. Title VI notice to the public can be found at https://portal.ct.gov/dot/business contract-compliance/title-vi-page. At the conclusion of this meeting, we would appreciate if you could take the time to complete our voluntary feedback survey to help the DOT improve our virtual public information meetings going forward. You can access the survey at https://www.surveymmonkey.com/r/9LV9TX9. A recording of the formal presentation will be posted to YouTube after the live event. Closed captioning, including non-English translation options, will be available at that time. As we begin the presentation, I would first like to introduce this meeting's speakers from the Connecticut DOT. I'm Elise Greenberg from the Office of Policy and Planning. After my portion of the presentation, Dunn Mallard from the Office of Rail will be speaking, and then Eric Renowitz from the Office of Policy and Planning will conclude the presentation. During the live question and answer session, David Elder from the Office of Policy and Planning will be moderating. Additional individuals from the Office of Rail will be available to answer questions. This presentation will begin with an introduction to the State Rail Plan, followed by an overview of the existing Connecticut rail system. Then we will present trends and forecasts affecting rail in Connecticut, and follow that with next steps in creating the rail plan. After the presentation, we will conclude with a live question and answer session. In this section, we will introduce you to the State Rail Plan. Why develop a rail plan? In 2008, the Passenger Rail Investment and Improvement Act, also known as PRIA, was passed for the purpose of improving passenger rail service throughout the nation. PRIA requires a state to have a Federal Railroad Administration, or FRA, accepted state rail plan as a condition for qualifying for certain sources of federal passenger rail funding. This eligibility requirement is important to note in light of the proposed federal infrastructure bill, which will authorize significant amounts of funding for transit, including discretionary grants. To be accepted by FRA, the State Rail Plan must comply with the structure, organization, and contents specified by PRIA and adhere to the guidance issued by the FRA in 2013. The Connecticut State Rail Plan currently in development updates the former 2012 to 2016 plan. The what and why of the State Rail Plan. The State Rail Plan is an eligibility requirement for federal rail funding per PRIA as previously mentioned. It articulates a vision for the entire freight and passenger rail system in Connecticut. It also describes the state rail network, trends and forecasts, and identifies needs and opportunities. The rail plan identifies how proposed rail improvements can serve the interests of state residents and businesses, and describes the coordination and outreach process used to develop the plan. And once again, the State Rail Plan positions the state to be eligible for federal support for its rail projects. The State Rail Plan is not a funding program for Connecticut rail improvements, nor is the State Rail Plan a service plan or a grant application. It is also not Connecticut DOT's 5-year capital improvement plan. The State Rail Plan is a compilation of existing studies, plans, and proposals in a manner that is consistent with the FRA guidance for rail plans. Let's now take a look at where we are in the process of developing the plan. Connecticut DOT started the process of updating its plan in the beginning of 2021. Throughout a plan's development, the FRA requires coordination with relevant stakeholders, including passenger rail operators, freight rail operators, metropolitan planning organizations, the public, and neighboring states. Following the initiation of the Rail Plan update, Connecticut DOT is now kicking off with public information meetings. In the early fall, we will begin targeted stakeholder outreach with passenger and freight rail operators as we continue to draft the plan throughout the fall. Once we have a draft of the plan complete, we will share the drafts and hold a second and final round of public information meetings anticipated to occur at the end of this year. The plan is expected to be submitted to FRA for acceptance during the winter of 2021 to 2022. Please note that this is a tentative timeline and may be subject to change. As previously mentioned, the State Rail Plan weaves together existing studies, plans, and proposals in a manner that is consistent with the FRA guidance for rail plans. While this is not an exhaustive list, some examples of planning efforts reflected in the State Rail Plan include the Connecticut Statewide Freight Plan, Time for CT, the former Connecticut State Rail Plan, the Transit Asset Management Plan, the Central Connecticut Rail Study, the New Haven Line Speed and Capacity Analysis, and the Comprehensive Energy Strategy. To be accepted by FRA, the State Rail Plan must comply with the structure, organization, and content specified by PREA and adhere to guidance issued by the FRA in 2013. The FRA guidance presents a prescriptive format for the structure and content of the plan. Per the guidance, the plan will cover the role of rail in the statewide transportation network and the state's existing rail system, including an overview of inventory, trends and forecasts, and needs and opportunities. This information informs proposed passenger rail as well as proposed freight rail improvements and investments. The plan will include the state's rail service and investment program, and it will document the coordination and review process used to develop the plan. As a preliminary draft, the vision for the State Rail Plan is to facilitate a robust and vibrant rail system that is safe, connects communities, generates sustainable economic growth, helps build energy independence, and provides links to travel corridors and markets within and beyond the region. The preliminary draft goals of the State Rail Plan address topics such as safety, system reliability, mobility, and our economy. Examples include maintaining the state's rail system in a state of good repair, improving intermodal connectivity, and increasing rail system speed and capacity to accommodate growth objectives. I'd like to take a moment to share some examples of accomplishments since the last State Rail Plan. While this is not an exhaustive list, it highlights some of Connecticut DOT's greatest rail achievements in recent years. Since the last Connecticut Rail Plan, Connecticut DOT launched the Hartford Line, upgraded signals along the New Canaan Line, improved infrastructure along the Waterbury and Danbury lines, upgraded power to the New Haven Line, improved station infrastructure statewide, repaired bridges in New Milford along the Housatonic Railroad, upgraded infrastructure along the Shoreline East with Amtrak, signalized and implemented positive train control along the Waterbury Line, and constructed a new component changeout maintenance and office facility in New Haven. This concludes the introduction and overview section of the Rail Plan presentation. Dunn Mallard will be presenting the next section.
I am Dunn Mallard, and I will be presenting a broad overview of the existing Connecticut rail system. The history of rail in Connecticut dates back to the 1830s. In the 1890s, many smaller Connecticut rail lines were merged or consolidated into 4 larger systems. Then in 1969, Penn Central took over the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad. Penn Central would later file for bankruptcy in 1970, and in the mid-1970s, the state of Connecticut leased and purchased several lines within the state with an eye toward preserving rail service. In 1985, the Connecticut DOT exercised rights to purchase the New Haven line, which is operated by Metro North Railroad in conjunction with the state of New York. A milestone was reached in 1990 with the beginning of Shoreline East service, and another milestone in 2018 with the opening of Hartford line service. The Connecticut passenger rail system is comprised of Amtrak intercity operations on the Northeast Corridor from Boston to Washington, and on the Hartford line from New Haven to Springfield, Massachusetts. There are 3 separate commuter systems in the state of Connecticut. Metro North is the designated operator for the New Haven line and its 3 feeder lines. The Hartford line, the designated operator is Transit America Services Incorporated, and Shoreline East commuter services are operated by our partner Amtrak. Continuing the overview of Connecticut passenger rail, intercity ridership, Amtrak reported 1.8 million passengers in Connecticut in 2019. This is pre-pandemic. Commuter ridership in the same period, the New Haven line reported 40,234,000 passengers, Shoreline East 660,000 passengers, and Hartford line nearly 731,000 passengers. There are 208 miles of track in Connecticut where passenger service is in place. Freight rail in Connecticut is comprised of 8 systems, 1 Class 1 railroad, and the remainder regionals or short lines. Part of the system is privately owned, part of the system is owned by Amtrak, and part of the system is owned by the state of Connecticut and leased designated operators. Continuing a look at Connecticut freight rail, as we mentioned, there are 8 railroads operating freight service in Connecticut. Together, they represented a total in 2019 of 4.1 million tons of freight with a value of over $153 million. The top 3 rail freight commodities in Connecticut are non-metallic minerals such as aggregates, waste and scrap materials, and clay, concrete, and glass materials. We are working to meet several challenges in the state as far as rail is concerned. Some of those are reliability, long-term funding availability, movable bridge renewal, improving rail ridership levels, improving freight capacity limitations, multimodal connectivity, especially bulk transfer, intermodal, and on-dock rail, and also elimination of speed restrictions at grade crossings, and also clearing mud spots and easing curves. With challenges bring opportunities for rail in Connecticut. Near-term capital projects over the next 5 years include bridge replacements on the New Haven line, track realignments for speed and reliability, signal improvements and modifications, a procurement of new coaches for Hartford line and Shoreline East service, and a continuation of the catenary improvement project on the New Haven line. Next up will be Eric Runowitz to discuss trends.
Hello, I'm Eric Runowitz, and I will be presenting an overview of trends and forecasts impacting rail in Connecticut. This slide discusses trends and forecasts, specifically demographics and economics. Connecticut's population is growing, with Fairfield County, Hartford County, and New Haven County accounting for 75% of the state's population. The graph on the left shows the increase of population throughout the years. Despite significant increases in unemployment from COVID, modeling indicates a strong economic recovery, shown by the graph on the right. With a growing population, it's critical for our economic recovery that we invest in our rail system. Having a healthy public transportation system is linked to a strong economy. Another trend we have seen was due to the COVID-19 pandemic, where we saw significant loss of ridership, which led to reduced service levels. However, service is returning to the Connecticut rail system, with the Hartford line that returned to full service on July 26th, while the New Haven line returned to 82% of pre-COVID weekday service on August 29th. At one point during the pandemic, the New Haven line saw a 95% decrease in ridership. The Connecticut Department of Transportation used the reduction in service as an opportunity to accelerate improvements along different lines, including track and signal improvements along the Waterbury line. Now that we've discussed some trends and forecasts, let's talk about the next steps in creating the rail plan. Our rail plan will need a section specifically talking about needs and opportunities. The first section will discuss passenger rail. Some of the examples would be performance and cost of current service, new station planning, proposed new service, station improvements, climate change adaptation, service gaps, and improvements for multimodal connections. These needs and opportunities inform our list of capital improvements. The rail plan will include a list of near-term, long-term, and aspirational projects that will address some of these topics. The second part of the needs and opportunities section of the rail plan will be dedicated to freight rail. Some of the things discussed in that section will be freight rail asset conditions and needs, rail abandonments and reopenings, clearance improvements, regional connectivity and corridor planning, as well as the 286,000-pound weight capacity standard. As previously mentioned in this presentation, the majority of freight rail in the state is privately owned. Therefore, our freight operator outreach will be critical to understanding some of these needs and opportunities, as well as help us put together a list of capital improvements. In addition to these public meetings, a virtual room was created to provide content pertaining to the State Rail Plan update, including the slides you have seen today. This 3D virtual room also provides a way for members of the public to provide comments and feedback for the plan. The room will be accessible 24/7 throughout the duration of plan development and will be updated upon our final round of outreach. You can access this room through our state website at www.ct.gov/DOT/SRP. I'd like to take a moment to go back to a slide which we've already seen in this presentation. This is the timeline for the rail plan update. Our next steps are stakeholder outreach, where we will meet with passenger rail operators as well as freight railroad operators. Once those sessions are complete, we will begin drafting the plan. We are hoping there'll be a draft completed for the fall of 2021. We will then share the draft publicly and conduct another final round of outreach, along with a public comment period which will last 45 days. We anticipate completing the plan winter 2021 or early in 2022. This concludes the overview of our State Rail Plan update process. We will now begin our live question and answer session.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Elder, and I'm a transportation planner at the Connecticut Department of Transportation and part of the team updating the Federal Railroad Administration's required State Rail Plan. I will be moderating this virtual public meeting. Now that the formal presentation has concluded, we will begin the live question and answer session. Participants are able to submit questions through the Microsoft Teams live event question and answer module, can email questions to dotplanning@ct.gov, or can call in questions to the phone number being monitored at 860-944-1111. In addition to viewing the virtual public engagement meeting through Microsoft Teams live event, participants can view the event on YouTube. To locate the email address and phone number to submit questions and links to the statewide rail plan update website, YouTube viewers can click on the Show More button below the video, which will expand the window and provide that information. Participants are also able to find more information and stay involved by visiting the Rail Plan Project website at www.ct.gov/DOT /SRP. Please note that there could be a few minutes delay from the time questions are posted or received and addressed based on the manner they are submitted or the volume of questions coming in. In some cases, the team may not have the answers to the questions at their fingertips and may need to follow up or respond at a later date. And we do have our first question. The first question is asking, how do we use the virtual room that was mentioned during the presentation? For this answer, I'm going to turn it over to Elise Greenberg, please.
Good evening, everyone. As mentioned during the presentation, there is a virtual room that was created to supplement these public meetings. If you visit on the Connecticut DOT website and navigate to the Connecticut State Rail Plan webpage and scroll to the bottom, which also includes the links to the public meetings, there's a link here for visiting the Rail Plan virtual room. You'll click this link and you'll see a splash screen appear. And the splash screen has a welcome message as well as some brief instructions of how to navigate through the room. So once you click into it, you will be entering the room. You will see a copy of the presentation that you viewed tonight when you first enter. To the left, and again, you can use your mouse to scroll around and navigate through the room. There's a directory. There's also a directory. If you move the mouse to the top, you'll see different tabs. And there's different stations essentially that you can navigate through out the room on different topics that were covered in tonight's meeting. And some of this meeting was some of the information was covered in tonight's meeting in the presentation, and some of it is additional information as well. We also have an area in the virtual room where you can submit comments and feedback. So if you click on that kiosk, a brief survey of a few questions with some text box that will allow you to submit questions or comments will pop up, and you can submit through the virtual room directly to our team. So again, we hope that you will enjoy and visit the virtual room that we have developed. We hope you will find it informative. This room will remain live throughout the duration of the plan's development, and once there is a draft of the plan completely developed, we will be adding additional content to this room. And so hopefully, again, you visit it and enjoy this feature.
All right, thank you very much, Elise. We have another question. The next question is, when will the Metro North trains begin going faster? I have noted that trains to New York City are slower today than they were at the beginning of the last century. I understand there are more stops and improved safety, but really this is 2021, and with new technology, can't we speed them up? Today, trains from Stamford to New York should arrive in 30 minutes. Will we ever get there? It forces me to consider driving as an option. For this question, for this answer, I'd like to turn it over to John Foster with our Office of Rails, please.
Yeah, David, this is Yuri Fulgi, so I will be answering that question. So good evening, everyone. So thank you again. This is Yuri Fulgi. I'm the Assistant Rail Administrator for the Office of Rail. So that's an excellent question, and we really appreciate that you're bringing this up. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Time for Connecticut. This is our initiative in Connecticut to increase the time savings, going from New Haven to New York. And we are very glad to let everyone know that by 2022, we will be having a time savings of 10 minutes. And by 2035, our plan is to have a total of time savings of 25 minutes. And again, starting next year, we're starting some super express service. We're very happy to announce this, and you may have heard that from the commissioner and the department. We also will be starting some of these projects along the New Haven line. So that is going to help us to increase the speeds and also to reduce the time savings, like you say, from New Haven to New York. So that's very general. I would suggest, again, if you need any details or any comments, that's on our website. You have a lot of the details about Time for Connecticut. And as always, if you have any questions, please let us know, okay? Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Yuri, and I appreciate you covering for John on that one. All right, just a reminder, if you do want to submit questions, there are three ways to post questions. You can post them in the Microsoft Live's question and answer module. You can send them via email to dotplanning@ct.gov, or there's also a phone line that's being monitored at 860-944-1111. All right, thank you. I see we do have another question. This one is, I was glad to read your reference to the importance of Connecticut's role in developing a growing interconnected rail system with adjoining states. What are your plans for communication with Massachusetts and New York about developments in both adjoining states related to the Berkshire-Housatonic line? Both states are investing in the line in different ways, but a large middle section of it runs through Western Connecticut. I realize that some crossing and bridges are being upgraded, but what about further work aimed at future passenger service on a line that Connecticut owns?
David, it's John Foster. Should I go ahead and answer that?
Please. Thank you, John.
Hi, John Foster. I just wanted to answer that question. There was a study done by the department on the Danbury branch that looked at extending service up to New Milford. That was done a few years back. That's on the, I believe that's still on the DOT website. And there's also a paper that was done by the Housatonic Railroad about running regional service on the Berkshire line. That was done a number of years ago. Currently, the department doesn't have any plans for expanding service to New Milford or onto the Berkshire line, but we're studying all aspects of service now, and we may be looking at that in the future. We have talked with Massachusetts in the past about their plans for the northern section, and we're in communications with Massachusetts on a monthly basis because of our partnership on the Hartford line with the state-supported Amtrak service on that line. Thanks, David.
Thank you, John. And for those of you just joining us, I do see that we have some people who just joined us. Thank you very much for being here. As a reminder, my name is David Elder, and I'm a transportation planner here at the Connecticut Department of Transportation. I'm part of the team updating the Federal Railroad Administration's update of the State Rail Plan, and I will be moderating the virtual public meeting. The formal presentation has concluded. It is available at the virtual public meeting website that is live 24/7, and there are multiple ways to submit comments. I'll review those in a few minutes. Participants are able to submit questions through the Microsoft Teams live event question and answer module. They can email questions to dotplanning@ct.gov or can call in questions to the phone number being monitored right now at 860-944-1111. For those of you participating through YouTube, you can see all of that information, ways to participate and submit questions by clicking the Show More button below the video, and that will expand and take you to the State Rail Plan Update website. That URL is www.ct.gov/DOT/SRP, and that does provide all the links for ways to participate and submit questions. We do have another question. This one, when will the report be finished? For that, I'm going to turn it over to Elise Greenberg, please.
Hi, the report is currently in the preliminary stages of being drafted. We are going to continue different rounds of outreach to various stakeholder groups throughout the fall as we draft the plan. We are anticipating that a draft of the plan will be complete at the end of this calendar year. That is an aggressive timeline, so that's our tentative anticipated date of completion for a draft. And once we do have a draft available, we will share that before conducting another round of public information meetings. And then we can review comments, final comments and questions, and integrate that into the finalization of a plan, which is anticipated again either at the end of this calendar year or probably more likely at the beginning of 2022. And then that will be submitted to FRA for their review and acceptance.
Thank you, Elise. We have another question. Is the planning process impacted by the passage or failure of the various federal infrastructure bills being proposed this year or in the future, or is the planning independent of any potential funding? For that, I'm going to turn it over to Yuri Kulgis with our Office of Rails. Go ahead, Yuri, when you get yourself off mute. Thank you.
Hi, Dave. Thank you. So that's another good question, and that the answer is no. You know that we're not impacted by that additional funding, and those are two independent. You know, it's nothing. You know, they are not connected. Just to remind about the State Rail Plan, you know that the plan is not a funding program for the Connecticut Rail improvements. It's not a 5-year capital improvement plan. So that answer is no. Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you, Yuri. We are getting some more questions. Just bear with us. There's a bit of a delay based on how many questions are coming in and the manner in which they're being submitted. All right, thanks everyone. We do have one of the questions that we have received is will there be a second option for engagement when there's a draft deliverable of the plan? There will be, but I will turn this over to Elise Greenberg for some additional information on the schedule. And I know there was a slide, but there are some people who are just joining us, so it might be worthwhile to remind folks about what the comment period is now, and then what the future steps will be for delivering and options for opportunities for commenting on future draft deliverables. Elise, when you can get yourself off of mute, please.
All right, thank you, David. I'm just going to share real quickly that slide again. So essentially, we are in the preliminary stages in doing these kickoff meetings. As we've recently initiated the rail plan development, we are going to be continuing to do targeted stakeholder outreach throughout the fall as the plan is being drafted. Specifically, we will be reaching out individually to our passenger rail operators as well as our freight rail operators to find out about their assets, their inventory and conditions of those, as well as what their future proposals and projects are, and understanding better their opportunities and needs so that we can incorporate that into the plan. And once there is a draft plan complete after the fall, we will be circulating that and publicly sharing the draft for comment and review, and we will also be holding another round of public information meetings, again, so that we can have comments and questions submitted, and we can incorporate all the feedback that we receive throughout into the plan's finalization and completion by either the end of this year or early next year.
All right, thank you very much. Another question we recently had is what are some of the COVID safety protocols that are being implemented over the last year to keep passengers safe? Yuri, could you take that one, or suggest someone on your team who can address that? What are the COVID security measures that are taking place now to keep passengers safe?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to ask Tom Aparo. Could you please answer that question?
Sure, I could answer that. First thing is, all the equipment is disinfected every day before it enters service. Masks are mandated at least through January 18th of 2022, following the CDC guidance. The shop is providing kits so that high contact surfaces can be cleaned by the crews throughout the day. And then MERV 13 air filters have been installed on all train cars in both incoming fresh air as well as recirculated air. And the volume of air in a rail car is turned over in each car just about every 6 minutes. No, those are pretty much what we do, and every once in a while we could do a deep cleaning on it, but you know, the disinfecting works. They go through with that every day.
Right, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Another question we have, Metro North recently filed to abandon the Beacon line between Brewster, New York and Beacon, Brewster, New York and Beacon, New York. How will this affect the study taking place to connect the Danbury station to the Southeast station in New York? If I could, I'm going to turn that over to Angelo Liberis.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Angelo Liberis here with the Connecticut DOT Office of Rail. So last we've heard there's a study being funded by the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council to look into the feasibility of running passenger rail service between Danbury and Southeast Station on Metro North's Harlem line via the Maybrook line. That's what we've heard last. We'll follow up with Metro North on the abandonment question, but to our knowledge, the feasibility study is in progress.
All right, thank you, Angelo. I appreciate that. We have another question. Researchers have identified one of the most cost-effective speed improvements for the New Haven line to be purchasing of track laying machines and modern turnouts, especially near Grand Central, which allow trains to operate at speeds only constrained by track geometry. These currently exist in other countries and take only a few years to complete. Are purchasing and installing these turnouts and track laying machines along the line being considered in the plan to most cost effectively improve speed and capacity? For that, I'm going to defer to Yuri Kulgis or have him direct that one to someone on his staff, please.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. So I can respond to that question. Thank you. That's a good question too. And we have been looking at both things that have listed here, the track laying machines and also the modern turnouts. As we know, our geometry, we have different challenges along the New Haven line, but definitely we have been looking at this and see if we can purchase and apply this again, to have a more cost effective, and also to reduce the speed. So the response to that is yes, we're looking into that. Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you very much, Yuri. Again, I'll just reiterate right now, we've gone through most of the questions that we've already received. If people do have questions, I encourage you to use the Microsoft Teams live event question and answer, or to submit your questions via email to dotplanning@ct.gov. In the meantime, for those of you also just joining us, we have about 45 days from the date of this public meeting to receive comments. We do have a 24/7 live virtual meeting that will have copies of the presentation you all just saw, as well as additional information about the previous plan, the goals and strategies for the upcoming plan, and we'll keep providing some progress report in terms of schedule on that at that virtual meeting room. The virtual meeting room link can be provided or accessed from going to the State Rail Plan update website at www.ct.gov/DOT/SRP. Another question we just received: will the state consider purchasing rechargeable electric multiple units, also known as EMUs, for the Danbury and Waterbury lines? These rail cars would recharge their batteries using the overhead catenary wires while traveling on the New Haven line, and would run off battery power while traveling on the branch lines. This technology is currently being implemented to replace diesel locomotives on several non-electrified branch lines throughout Europe. This implementation in Connecticut would be the first in the United States, but would potentially serve as good cost-effective alternative to installing catenary lines on the branch lines. For this answer, again, Yuri, I'm going to turn it over to you or someone on your staff. I'll start with you, please.
Perfect. Okay, no, thank you, Dave. So yeah, definitely I can answer that question. And that's an excellent question too, because definitely we're looking at different options, along the Danbury line and the Waterbury line. And hopefully we can share those details soon. We have been looking too at the possibility of electrifying the tracks. But again, we're now in the planning mode. and we have been looking at the option of EMUs. But excellent question. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Thank you very much, Yuri. I want to give everyone a few minutes in case we get some more questions. It appears right now that there are no additional questions. There could also be a bit of a delay. All right. Well, it's just a few minutes before 7, and I'm going to leave the chat and the meeting open for a few more minutes to see if we get some more questions, but at this time we don't see any more, so I would continue to encourage people to visit the 24/7 virtual room. That it's going to be updated regularly, and you're going to be able to get access to all the documents that are most recent, and you'll be able to see the progress of the plan as well as additional information that we're going to be using, as well as we'll be posting information there about the next round of public engagement. And I do encourage everyone to stay involved. This is it's an important plan update for the state of Connecticut, and we want to make sure that we reach all corners of the state. Obviously, our rail system serves everyone in the state. Some people use it on a daily basis as commuters. Others use it infrequently, but when they do use it, it provides an important mobility option for them, and we want to make sure that we're hearing everyone in all comments. And by all means, if there are certain areas, strategies or goals that you think that we should consider in the plan update, we want to hear from you. So please reach out via email. I encourage you to use that email, the dotplanning@ct.gov. And we will continue to monitor these avenues for questions and try to stay involved. All right. Well, I do appreciate everyone attending tonight's meeting. Thank you all for attending. And again, I do encourage you to stay involved. Use the virtual public meeting room. It's a very powerful means of communicating over the course of the plan update, especially while we're all adjusting to not meeting in person. And it's proven to be effective. And if anyone does have any questions or they have difficulty engaging through that electronic medium, we do have a Title VI plan. The Title VI plan does include many ways for people with anyone who has challenges, whether it be in person or remote, and we're happy to make ourselves available for whatever way we can to help the engagement process for you. And please, I just encourage you to stay involved. So thank you all again for your time and your attention. And we do have 2 additional public meetings. Those are both next week. The first of the next one is during the day. It will be on September 2nd at 1 p.m. and the other one will be September 9th, also at 6 p.m. and it'll be the same format of this. So I encourage everyone to participate in those or spread the word, and we look forward to working with you all and hearing you and engaging you out throughout the development of this plan. And good night, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Elder, and I am a transportation planner at the Connecticut Department of Transportation and part of the team updating the Federal Railroad Administration's, commonly referred to as the FRA's, required update of the State Rail Plan. I will be moderating the question and answer session of this virtual public meeting. Now that the formal presentation has concluded, we will begin the live question and answer session. Participants are able to submit questions through the Microsoft Teams live event question and answer module, can email questions directly to dotplanning, all one word, @ct.gov, or can call in questions to the phone number being monitored at 860-944-1111. Again, that phone number is 860-944-1111. In addition to viewing the virtual public engagement meeting through the Microsoft Teams live event platform, participants can also view the event on YouTube. To locate the email address and phone number to submit questions to and links to the statewide rail plan update website, YouTube viewers can click on the Show More button below the video, which will expand the window and provide that information. Participants are also able to find more information and stay involved by visiting the Rail Plan project website at www.ct.gov/DOT/SRP. Again, that is www.ct.gov/DOT/SRP. Additionally, please note that there could be a few minutes delay from the time the questions are posted or received and addressed based on the manner that they are received and the volume of questions coming in. In some cases, the team may not have the answers to the questions at their fingertips and may need to respond at a later date. If this is the case, we will attempt to collect the contact information of the person asking the question in order to respond at the later date. All right. We do have one question already in. This question is, when will the report be finished? And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Elise Greenberg.
Thank you, David. I will just share my screen real quickly to go back to the timeline slide. So to recap again, a timeline of the plan's development. We are in the early stages of conducting public outreach as well as other stakeholder outreach, which we will continue into the early fall with our passenger rail operators and our freight rail operators. And throughout the fall, we will be working on drafting the plan. And once there is a final draft complete, which we do anticipate being in the early winter, we will share that plan publicly, the draft, and conduct another round of public meetings such as these to gather your input, and then we will be integrating that input as we work to finalize the plan. We are hoping to finalize the plan at the end of this calendar year, and if not, the beginning of 2022, before we finalize it and then submit it to FRA for the review and acceptance. So again, you know, this is an aggressive timeline, but we are hoping there will be a final and complete and approved plan either the end of 2021 or early 2022. That may be subject to change, but that is our target.
All right, thank you very much, Elise. Another question, will the passenger and freight rail maps be available to the public? Elise, I'm going to turn that one back over to you.
Those maps will be available in our virtual room, which can be accessed through the website that you see on your screen. The Connecticut Rail Plan website has a link to the virtual room, and there is a large system overview map within that room, and there's also then separate freight and passenger rail maps and stations with additional information. In addition to that, there are other maps available on the Office of Rail's webpage on the DOT website, and we will have more maps shared as we share an entire draft of the plan later this fall or early winter.
All right, thank you very much, Elise. We have another question. There were proposals discussed in the 2012 Connecticut Rail Plan to add new services, including linking Shoreline East to Rhode Island's MBTA service, that have not been implemented. What steps, in addition to being discussed in the rail plan, are necessary to move such proposals to implementation? For that, I'm going to start with Angelo Liberis with our Office of Rails. Angelo, please.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Angelo Liberis. I'm with the Office of Rail at the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Thank you for your question. We actually are developing a scope of work and are looking to engage a consultant to perform this study. We'll be looking to extend Shoreline East's rail service to the state of Rhode Island. Also in that study, we'll be looking at new train stations in the town of Groton, possibly in Stonington as well. And we'll also be looking at extending ground transportation systems in the eastern region of the state. So it's in progress at the moment.
All right, thank you very much, Angelo. Just give us 1 second. We do have a few more questions coming in. So we do have a question coming in. How does someone go about using the virtual room? Just a reminder, I will turn this over to Elise Greenberg, but I just want to remind everyone that the virtual public engagement room is a very useful tool. It is available 24/7, and all of the content that's going to be available here on these initial public meetings will also be available on the virtual public room. And we will be updating the documentation in the virtual public meeting room through the duration of the plan. So it is a great resource, and I encourage people to go there for more information. And Elise, if you could please just walk us through how that actually works. Thank you.
Absolutely. As David mentioned, this room is in supplement to these meetings. And so to best illustrate how to use it, I will be doing a brief demo right now. To go to the virtual room, first you will visit our Connecticut State Rail Plan webpage. You can either navigate that through the DOT homepage, or you can Google it, or you can go through the direct URL, which is www.ct.gov/DOT/SRP. And so that will bring you to this webpage for the State Rail Plan, which will have an overview of the plan and additional information regarding these meetings, how to submit comments. And at the bottom, there's a link to visit the Connecticut State Rail Plan virtual room. So when you click on that link, it will bring you to the virtual room webpage, which you will first be greeted by a splash page that welcomes you to the room, as well as has a little brief overview of instructions in terms of how to navigate the room. And then you'll press enter or click on the screen to enter the room. And as you see, the first thing that you'll see when you enter the room is a copy of the presentation that you saw at this meeting and that we've been presenting at all of the kickoff meetings. And you can use your mouse to scroll through the room. It has a 360-degree view. There's also a directory that you can click on that will bring you to different stations, as well as at the top of the web page, there are tabs that you can click on as well to bring you to different stations. And so each of those has some information that you viewed in this formal presentation at the meeting, as well as some additional information. As I mentioned earlier, there are maps, freight and passenger, and an overview map as well. And then we also have a station in the room where you can submit feedbacks and comments. So there's actually a brief survey that will pop up with a few questions and some opportunities to write in your comments and questions that will get submitted directly to our rail team. And we will be answering those and incorporating your feedback into the plan as it is developed. Again, this is a very useful tool for providing feedback, and this room will remain up until the completion of the plan. We will be updating it once there is a draft of the plan complete with additional information. So definitely take a look when you have a chance, and we encourage you to submit your feedback through the site.
All right, thank you, Elise, for running through that demonstration. The next question, this person is interested in what actions or plans the department is considering for the Waterbury branch line after the signal and PTC actions opportunities exist to increase the service and improve rail cars. That appears to be a statement as well as a question, so I'm going to turn it over first to Angelo, and perhaps he'll move that around to some other staff in the Office of Rails. Go ahead, Angelo. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon again. So once the work is complete on the Waterbury line, we'll be looking to increase service and add up to 7 additional trains beginning in July of next year, 2022. Another bit of good news for the Waterbury line, we've just initiated a study which is called the Waterbury Line Improvement Plan, and we'll be looking for near-term and long-term enhancements in infrastructure and also train schedule And I'll pass it over to John Bernick now, who'll talk a bit about the station.
Hi, I'm John Bernick, Assistant Rail Administrator for Design and Construction. We do have a project, a program that's moving into the design phase now to add high-level platforms on all the Waterbury Line stations. The stations will get high-level platforms that allow for level boarding onto the train, and will also include the heated fiber-reinforced polymer decks to keep them clear of snow and ice in the wintertime. The project also includes replacement of the concrete platform at the Waterbury station itself, so it'll also get a heated deck. And it also incorporates the intermodal plans for the Derby station, which are the subject of a federal grant application.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll receive that grant. I'm going to move on to the next question. Next question is, how often will this plan be updated? Elise, I think that question goes to you. Please feel free to pass it off if it's someone else. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So as mentioned, there actually is no federal statutory requirement for a state to submit a rail plan. However, per PREA, having an FRA approved state rail plan is a condition for being eligible to receive specific sources of discretionary funding. And so Connecticut DOT would like to be able to position ourselves if those sources of funding become available, especially in light, again, of the proposed federal infrastructure package. Per the last federal transportation authorization bill, known as the FAST Act, that stands for Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, it was passed in 2015. That proposes that a state rail plan be submitted every 4 years for acceptance by FRA. So if we are submitting the plan, let's say at the end of this year, and it will be a 2021 to 2025 year plan, we will be then required to submit a plan in another 4 years. So we would like to stick to that 4-year cycle that is required per the FAST Act.
All right, thank you very much, Elise. The next question is related to 30-30-30. How does this plan bring the concept of 30-30-30 rail service to reality? Angelo, I'm going to start with you on that. Feel free to pass it to someone else if in fact it is.
Yeah, so 30-30-30, we're now referring to that as the time for CT, which will provide incremental improvements in travel times on the New Haven line and throughout the rail service in the state. So, you know, we're looking at about 10 minutes of saving times by next year. But, you know, through 2035, our long-term vision, we'll need some significant funding to get to the 30-30-30, which is 30 minutes Hartford to New Haven, 30 minutes New Haven to Stamford, 30 minutes Stamford to New York City. There will be some significant rail infrastructure improvements that are needed, and but we can make some incremental improvements along the way.
All right, thank you very much, Angelo. The next question, the NECR, the Tiger Grant awardee, has several low bridges. Will the Connecticut State Rail Plan identify double stacking objectives and actions? For this, John Bernick, I'm going to start with you, and again, go ahead and pass it off if in fact someone else should answer.
It sort of depends upon, you know, how the different projects come about. For instance, Connecticut DOT is interested in furthering freight connectivity and additional opportunities, which include 286K bridge ratings for weight, which allows for heavier loads on the rail line. And where possible, there could be opportunities allow for double stacking. It depends upon, you know, when you talk about double stacking, you're talking about generally the overhead highway bridges and the clearance on the overhead highway bridges. So it's really depends upon when those highway bridges are due and what the opportunities are to either raise those bridges or lower the track to get the double stack height requirement. And so it's really a case-by-case basis.
All right, thank you very much, John. We have another question. Is the update of the Connecticut State Rail Plan being managed by Connecticut DOT in-house, or are there consultants helping with this project? If there are consultants involved with the State Rail Plan update, which consulting companies are under contract to assist the project, and what roles will these companies play in the process? So that one I will answer that. Well, the Connecticut DOT is managing the plan update in-house. The majority of it is being done by Connecticut DOT staff. However, there are certain aspects that we are relying on a consultant team for. AECOM is the primary consultant working on that, and specifically part of the FRA guidance, and I should take a minute to say that we are adhering to the FRA guidance, a large objective. In fact, the objective of doing the statewide rail plan is to make sure that it conforms to the guidance of the standards, the prescribed standards by FRA. They were done in 2013, and we have to adhere to certain requirements. One of those is understanding the benefits of our investment into the capital projects contained in the state rail plan, and that has been demonstrated to mean that we do certain amounts of benefit cost analyses and understand the economic impacts of those investments. And so that is the aspect that we're having AECOM help us with. So understanding the economic impacts and the benefits that are accrued to the public in terms of the freight rail operators and the passengers of those services. So Connecticut DOT is managing the update in-house, and we do have the consultant firm of AECOM helping with that aspect of the plan. All right, the next question is, will the state rail plan address long-term impacts to services and demand due to COVID? Data collected in the previous years, 2019 and prior, may not be relevant given reduced demand of workers needing to be in the brick and mortar offices. New Haven to New York City travel time should still be reduced with actions. So I'm seeing a question in the first part. Will the state rail plan address long-term impacts to services and demand due to COVID? Data collected in previous years may not be relevant. And then the last part seems to be a statement. New Haven to New York City travel time should still be reduced with actions. Okay, so for that question, I'm going to start with Tom Aparo, please. Thank you, Tom.
Sorry, Dave. Could you repeat some of that? It was breaking up a little bit for me.
Sure. Will the state rail plan address long-term impacts due to services and demand due to COVID? So
I believe that is part of your projections, but really we have Metro North hired a consultant to take an extensive study on the return of ridership, as has Amtrak. So we're relying on our partners to look at this, and we're following this really on a daily basis in most cases. We closely watch this, and as it returns, we bring back service when we can and where it's warranted.
All right. Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate that. And I'm being told by my team that I missed a question regarding East Windsor. So let me go back up there. Are there any plans to reactivate out of service corridors in the future, such as the East Windsor secondary in Enfield? 1 minute.
I could take that one, Dave.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you very much, Tom.
Yep, and that's part of one of the things that they're looking at in the Greater Hartford Mobility Study. So they're looking at a whole bunch of different things, including rail, you know, automobiles, planes, you know, any mode of transportation, they're looking at that. And, you know, they're basically looking at what we can do and what makes the most sense.
All right, Tom, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm just going to give a few more minutes. We have answered all the questions that were currently pending. We do have a few more minutes, so if people do have any additional questions, we'd be happy to take them. I just want to remind everyone that there are 3 ways to submit questions. Folks can either use the question and answer module of this Microsoft Teams live event. They can email questions to dotplanning@ct.gov, or they can call in questions at 860-944-1111. Again, that's 860-944-1111. I also want to remind everyone that we are beginning the 45-day comment period now, so this is not your only opportunity to ask questions or provide comments. That email address is always available to you. And I recommend you also visit the website www.ct.gov/dot/SRP, and there you'll also be able to get links to the 24/7 available virtual live room. And we're happy to take questions any which way they can go. And this is a statewide rail plan, so we're looking for as much feedback as possible at this time. For those people on YouTube, I also want to remind you that you can find links to the website below by clicking on the Show More button if you are trying to find that contact information. And we are still completed with all the questions, so at this time I'm gonna start to wrap up. I want to thank everyone who was able to join us today, as well as those who participated in our prior virtual public meeting. We do have one more event. That one will be on Thursday, September 9th, beginning at 6 p.m. And we'll be doing this again then. So if you weren't able to attend, or if you want to tell your friends and family that you think they should attend, well, we're happy to have them and hear what they have to say too. So please let folks know we'll be doing this again September 9th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the day. Hopefully your basement's dry and you're all safe. All right, take care. Bye.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Alicia Late, and I am the Assistant to the Public Transportation Bureau Chief here at the Connecticut DOT, and I will be moderating this event. Now that the formal presentation has concluded, we will begin the live question and answer session. Participants can submit questions using the Microsoft Teams live event question and answer function by email to dotplanning@ct.gov. Again, that's dotplanning@ct.gov, or by calling 860-944-1111 and leaving a message. Again, that phone number is 860-944-1111. In addition to viewing the virtual public meeting through the Microsoft Teams live event, participants can also view the event on YouTube. YouTube viewers can click on the Show More button below the video to find the email address and the phone number to submit questions, as well as the link to the statewide rail website. For more information on the update to the statewide rail plan and to stay involved, please visit the project website at https://www.ct.gov/dot/SRP. Okay, and with that, we will jump right into our first question. And so our first question is, how do you use the virtual room? And for that, I will hand it over to Elise Greenberg.
Thank you, Alicia. I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen here. So to access our virtual room, you will first need to visit our State Rail Plan webpage. And so once you navigate to the State Rail Plan webpage, either by entering the URL directly, or you can Google it or go through our main homepage, you will scroll down to the bottom, and there is a link here for visiting the State Rail Plan virtual room. When you click that link, you will see a splash screen appear that will welcome you to the virtual room and provide an overview of directions in terms of how to navigate inside the room. You can click to then enter into the room. When you enter, you will immediately see a copy of tonight's formal presentation, and you can click through the slides here. You can also navigate through the room by either using your mouse to turn. There's also a directory in which you can directly click on different stations. And at the top, there are different tabs as well for the different stations. So you also have the option of clicking those to navigate. And when you click each station, information will pop up in regard to those particular areas within the room. And some of the information throughout the room is a little bit duplicative to our presentation, and some of it is additional information that we provide. There's also maps, and at this particular kiosk, there is the option of submitting comments and feedback. When you click it, you will see a brief survey of a couple of questions and an opportunity to enter into the text boxes any questions or comments you have. So this is a tool that will be available 24/7 during the duration of the State Rail Plan update as we are drafting the plan. And when we have a draft of the plan complete and we conduct a second round of final outreach later this year, we will add more content to the room and also provide a draft of the plan through the room as well. But this provides an opportunity to engage with us and to visit for more information at your convenience, if especially you are unable to attend these particular meetings. So we hope that you will visit this room, that you will submit comments and feedbacks through the kiosk, and that you enjoy this, this additional tool that is available.
Great, thanks, Elise. So it looks like we do have another question, and the question is, when is the comment period? So Elise, do you want to take that one as well?
Sure, thank you, Alicia. Our comment period for this portion of the plan outreach is 45 days from the first day of our virtual kickoff meetings. And so that brings us through October 15th to formally submit questions or comments to us. Again, there will be a second round of outreach once we release a draft of the plan, and that will provide an additional opportunity to review it and submit, once again, comments and questions at that time.
Great, thank you. So we do have another question here. So the question is, what date are the train speeds on the New Haven line expected to increase in 2022? And when can we expect the 25-minute faster trains on the New Haven line? So I'll go ahead and repeat that question. What date are the train speeds on the New Haven line expected to increase in 2022? And when can we expect the 25-minute faster trains on the New Haven line? So for this question, I will hand it off to Rich Jankovich, and he can assist us further.
Good evening. Thank you, Rich Jankovich, Rail Administrator. And with that question, I would like to pass on to Angelo. Do you want to take that for us?
Sure, Rich. Good evening. Thank you for your question. My name is Angelo Duveres. I'm with the Office of Rail at the Connecticut Department of Transportation. While there is no specific date in 2022 for the increased speed on the New Haven line, we are working on train schedule enhancements with Metro North Railroad and Amtrak that can reduce travel times to New York City. If all parties agree with the proposed schedule changes, the enhanced schedule can go into effect mid to late 2022. There are also infrastructure improvements being proposed on the New Haven line that will allow trains to travel faster. This will require additional funding. The time for CT plan will provide incremental improvements in travel times on the New Haven line, with travel time savings of up to 25 minutes by 2035.
Great, thanks, Angelo. And so just a reminder to anyone listening, we are currently working on a statewide rail plan pursuant to the guidelines prepared by Federal Railroad Administration in 2013. And as mentioned before, we are just starting our 45-day comment period. And so there will be another round of a comment period once the draft has been documented. So I just wanted to remind everyone of why we're here. And I'm going to check to see if there's any more questions posted. As a reminder, if you do have a question, you can post your question through the Microsoft Teams live event question and answer function. You can also send us an email at dotplanning@ct.gov, or you can give us a phone call at 860-944-1111. Getting some really great questions here. So we actually have another one that's come through. And are there plans to electrify the Hartford line? So that's the next question. And for that one, I will hand it off to Rich Jankovic again, and he can assist.
Thank you again, Rich Jankovic, Rail Administrator. With that one, I'd like to go to John Foster and/or Angelo. I know that's something new that's just come up recently, so maybe one of those guys can assist.
Absolutely. Hi, John Foster. Currently the department is looking at various lines in the state, including the Hartford line, as far as electrification. We're looking at the Hartford line, the Waterbury line, and the Danbury line, and looking at what those costs would be and what the benefits would be for the public. We're going to be starting a study on that shortly to look at a high-level view of that and come up with some answers to that question. So thank you.
Great, thanks, John. And just a reminder to those that are viewing on YouTube, you can click on the Show More button below the video to find the email address and the phone number to submit questions, as well as the link to the website. So thank you so much for joining us on YouTube, and hopefully everything is going well on that end. So we're going to check to see if we have any questions here. And just as a reminder, please give us a little time in case there's some technical difficulties. Okay, I'm not seeing any new questions. We'll give it a few more minutes. Just a reminder, you can send us an email at dotplanning@ct.gov if you have a question, or give us a call on 860-944-1111. Okay, so it looks like we have another question that's come through. Thank you so much. So the question is, how often is the plan updated? And for that question, I would like to pass it over to Elise.
Thank you, Alicia. That is a great question. This is Elise Greenberg here from the Office of Policy and Planning. There is no statutory requirement that requires states to prepare a state rail plan. However, FRA strongly encourages it, and as previously mentioned during the formal presentation, having an FRA accepted state rail plan is an eligibility requirement for certain sources of discretionary funds. And according to the prior Federal Transportation Authorization Bill, the FAST Act, which stands for Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, which was passed in 2015, that did propose that state rail plans should be submitted every 4 years for acceptance by the FRA. So depending on exactly when this current plan that is in progress is submitted and accepted by FRA, whether it's 2021 or 2022, Our next plan would then be 4 years out from that ideally, but we are trying to get back onto a 4-year cycle so that we will be competitive for being able to apply for those sources of federal funds as they become available.
Great, thanks, Elise. So we're going to check here to see if we've gotten any other questions from our listeners. Not seeing any at this time, but we'll give it a few more minutes to see if any come through. Just a reminder, definitely please check out our website. The virtual room is fantastic. You can leave comments there. You can check out, maps and visuals. It's a really great way to engage. And we look forward to seeing your comments there as well. Okay, so it looks like we have another question. The question is, will the rail plan propose or recommend minimum service standards? For example, minimum hourly service on the Hartford line, Shoreline East branches, etc. And so for that question, I'd like to pass it to John Foster.
Thank you, Alicia. My name is John Foster. So the answer to that question is no, the rail plan won't decide minimum service standards. What really drives minimum service standards really is ridership or ridership growth. So if ridership is increasing on during the peak period, then normally the department looks to alleviate the overcrowdedness and those kind of things and add additional service. But that's more of a future look at it as the service is progressing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to everyone listening for your thoughtful questions. We really do appreciate the engagement. And we're going to see if any other questions come through. Okay, we do have another question. Is passenger service to Yukon stores, for example, Wyndham, being studied? When was the last time it was looked at? So for that question, I'm going to pass it over to Ruby Siegel.
Thanks, Alicia. This is Ruby Siegel. I'm a consultant for the Connecticut DOT. The question about service to stores is it's not part of the rail plan per se, but it is part of several of one of the other studies that are going to be going on to look at how to improve service between New Haven and Providence, going via Hartford and possibly then connecting to Providence across that route that goes by stores and the University of Connecticut campus. We don't have the timing right now of when that study might take place, but it is something that is on the list and the minds of folks in Connecticut and also Rhode Island and I guess a little bit Massachusetts as well. I don't know if maybe Rich, you want to add something to that, or do you think I covered that okay?
You covered it correctly and good. Thanks, Ruby.
Okie doke. Thanks.
Thanks, Ruby. As a reminder, please send us any questions that you have. You can send us a question through the Microsoft Teams live event Q&A chat function. We are also accepting them via email, so at dotplanning@ct.gov, and also by phone number. So if you'd like to give us a call, it's 860-944-1111. So we have a question that's come through. I do believe I don't know if we've answered this previously, but is the comment period 45 days? And I can answer that. The comment period is 45 days. And Elise, did you want to add anything to that? Additional ways that others can make comments throughout the comment period?
Sure, thank you, Alicia. The comment period is 45 days, that is correct. It began on the date of our first public kickoff meeting, which was August 31st, so it will end October 15th. Comments or questions during this period of time can be submitted to either our email, which is dotplanning@ct.gov, or by leaving a voicemail on our phone number 860-944-1111. Or you can also submit comments and questions through our comments and feedback station in our virtual room. There's also a couple of other questions that provide an opportunity to, again, provide more feedback and any areas that you think that should be considered as we update the rail plan. And this 45-day comment period does apply to this current round of kickoff meetings. We will be holding a final round of meetings either later this year or early next year once a draft of the rail plan is entirely complete, and we will be looking for feedback after we share a copy of that draft publicly, and there will be then another 45-day comment period at that point in time.
Okay, great. Thank you. So another question has come through. The question is, there is currently a $1 million rail study underway. It's funded by the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council and Metro North to expand passenger rail service to connect Danbury, Connecticut to the Harlem line. This study is underway and is being conducted to address concerns by Connecticut and New York due to significant ridership migration across the border. Both New York and municipalities on the Connecticut side of the border, especially Danbury, are strongly in favor of this important connection. Thank you for that great question. Okay, and so for that, I'm going to actually hand it over to Angelo Luberas, and he's going to help us answer that question.
Hello again, Angelo Luberas. I'm with the Office of Rail. The Connecticut DOT is aware of this study. We're aware that it's in progress, and we are in support of this study. We don't have any plans at the moment for a specific study in that region for that passenger rail corridor, but we will work with Metro North on any needs that they might need from us in order to continue moving forward with that study.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Great question. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, I'm not seeing any new questions. If you do have a question, please send it in. Going to give the last call for questions. Give it a couple minutes. We definitely want to thank everyone who's attended the last 3 meetings. We've gotten some really thoughtful questions, great engagement, and we definitely look forward to future meetings to talk about this particular project. Just a reminder, this session is being recorded, so if you'd like to, take a look at it again or, tell others about it, they can definitely check it out. Looks like we have another question that's come in. So the question is, along with electrification of the Danbury and Waterbury Metro North lines, is double tracking also being considered? So I'll just repeat the question. Along with electrification of the Danbury and Waterbury Metro North lines, is double tracking also being considered? And so I will hand this off to Rich Jankovic, who can assist.
Thanks, Alicia. Again, Rich Jankovic, Office of Rail Administrator. And yes, as we are looking at the electrification, yes, we are also going to look at those opportunities of additional capacity. But I'd also like, John to start, and then if not, maybe Ruby to follow up with that.
Certainly. It's John Foster with the Connecticut DOT Rail Operations. As far as double tracking goes, we're looking to do a master plan for the Waterbury branch, and along with that master plan, we'll be looking at all sorts of aspects of improvements for the line, including building of high-level platforms, as well as additional opportunities for increased speed, and double tracking would be a consideration also. The Waterbury branch formerly was a double track railroad before World War, up until World War II. Danbury line, we've already done a study a number of years ago that's on the DOT website to be accessed, and that one had less opportunity to do double tracking, but there were some opportunities to do sidings, and some sidings have already been done. There are additional locations that sidings could be added in the future. Rich, anything else that you think?
No, I think that's good unless Ruby wanted to add any more, but I think that would be good.
No, I think you covered it, and I'm glad you mentioned the fact you're looking at strategic, locations for sidings if double tracking doesn't work, just to make sure that you're, optimizing the use of the rail line. So that was good. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. And so it looks like we do have another question that's come through. I apologize. So I believe we did not answer this question. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but Litchfield County has no passenger rail service. What are the obstacles to extending the Waterbury line to Torrington? So I'd like to hand that off to Rich Jankovich again.
I'll start off, thank you, and then I'll pass on to John. As part of the master plan that John had referred to earlier, this stretch is being currently reviewed by our Office of Rail and with our design consultant, or I should say our consultant team. But John, do you want to give us an update on where we are with that?
Certainly, and that one also falls under the Waterbury master plan. We are looking at the Waterbury line, and also we're looking at the line going north to Torrington as part of that study. That study will be started in the fall, and it's going to be I believe, 18-month study. And that'll be part of the study to find out what the impediments are and what could be done to move that forward and actually start some service and what the cost would be for that. Thank you for that question.
Great, thanks, John. And so I have not seen any new questions come through. I would just like to call for any last questions to please come through in the next couple minutes. Again, thank you so much for attending and giving us these great questions. We truly appreciate it. Please check us out on the webpage. Check out the virtual room. And there is a survey that you can fill out. If you check the bottom of the YouTube page, that's available there. And the survey is also available on the webpage as well, I believe. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any new questions come through. So at this time, we will close the virtual public meeting. We again, thank you so much for your attendance, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great evening.